Hello and welcome to Sun Spotlight. I am your host, Charisma, grateful to be back for another episode. In addition to these interviews that I do every Thursday at noon, I also write a weekly column for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun, which you can read on newsstands every Friday. You can also check us out online at www.philasun.com and be sure to follow the Philadelphia Sunday Sun on all social media platforms. Today, I am thrilled to be speaking with an incredible woman. Dr. Nia Bailey is a radiation therapist. She is an author, and she is the creator of the documentary A Letter to My Sisters, a breast cancer documentary for young women. So it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to Sun Spotlight, Dr. Nia Bailey. Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time and I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I'm excited to share it with the folks out there. So let's start in the beginning. When did you first feel like you were being pulled to be in the medical field?
That's a great question. I think since birth, my mom and dad would call me doctor, I think, as soon as she gave birth to me. And originally, I wanted to be an obstetrician, like what was his name? Cliff, excuse me. You don't even know his name. From the Cosby Show before whatever.
Yeah.
And then I volunteered. I don't even know if I can say or maybe that's why I couldn't say his name, but anyway, I volunteered at Bryn Mawr Hospital in the labor and delivery unit, and I said, "This is not for me. Get me away from this. I do not want to be an obstetrician anymore."
Okay.
And then my family called me Sister Soldier, So I said, well, maybe I should be a civil rights lawyer. I volunteered there. I said, oh, Father, help me. If I read one more book, I'm cool. So it wasn't until my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer, I was like, oh, yeah, let me, I think I can do this. I'm a daddy's girl. Let me see what helped him. And then I volunteered in the radiation oncology department, and I fell in love. So it's sort of always been in my blood, but I didn't really know what track I was going to go in. But as soon as my dad had prostate cancer, I was like, this is what I'm going to do.
And what was the track to you becoming a radiation therapist? Like, how long did you have to go to school? And like, what was that process like for you?
Yeah. So I attended Immaculata University, and at the time that had a program, 3 years at Immaculata, 1 year at Thomas Jefferson. So at Immaculata, I got my degree in allied health with a concentration of radiologic sciences. And at Thomas Jefferson, I got my degree in radiologic sciences with a concentration of radiation therapy. So 4 years, but 3 at Immaculata, 1 year at Thomas Jefferson. I took my boards and officially became a radiation therapist. So
I loved Immaculate. I went to visit. So.
no, always went. Such a great school, though. I love it.
Yeah, so it seems like your passion has always been to help people, and everything that you're doing is in line with that. So, I had an opportunity to watch the documentary that you did, A Letter to My Sisters, a breast cancer documentary for young women, and it was absolutely amazing, and it pulls at your heartstrings. So, I wanted to know first and foremost, what made you decide that in addition to the work that you do as a radiation therapist, that you wanted to also be a filmmaker? What made you want to become a filmmaker and specifically talk about this subject?
So I know I created the film, but I don't consider myself a filmmaker. I mean, that's like Angela Bassett and,
No, you're a
all these
filmmaker.
other people.
Own it, own it. You're a filmmaker. Own it.
Okay. But it wasn't until I started working in the field, and there was this young girl that looked just like me. She had box braids. She had a gold anklet, 24 years old. And this was when I was 24 years old too. And she passed away of triple negative breast cancer. And I'm like, what is going on? That could be me. And then I would just see these young women come in 24, 36, 40. And I'm like, hold on. I feel like when I was reading the text before I took my boards, it was breast cancer 50 and older, 50 and older, nothing below. So what is happening here? But it wasn't until I met my patient turned friend, Jacqueline, that I really decided to make this documentary. So just quickly, her story was she was 33 years old. She felt a lump in her breast, went to her doctor. The doctor felt it and said, I think it's just a cyst. You're too young for breast cancer. Go about your day. So she waited a year. So she said, my physician knows, waited a year, went back to that doctor. It was actually her gynecologist. And she went to have her IUD taken out because she wanted to start a family. She always wanted to be a mother. So the doctor did the assessment and her eyes got big. She sent her to an ultrasound, 3D mammogram, biopsy, and it turned out to be triple negative breast cancer. So she went through that year not having any treatment because she thought it was a cyst, but it wasn't. And she said it was a cyst without doing any testing. But that's neither here nor there. So Jacqueline didn't have any time to harvest her eggs. She went right into chemotherapy for several cycles, surgery, radiation. That's when I met her, and we thought that she was fine. She had clear screenings and everything. Probably a couple months later, she had a bad headache. It turned out the breast cancer metastasized, spread to her brain. She had brain surgery, looked phenomenal. And a couple weeks later, she passed away. So I said, you know what? I'm doing this for my friend because I don't think that us young women think that we can get breast cancer. I think we think if we're going to get it, potentially will happen later on in our lives, not necessarily right now. So I said, sometimes we're tired of reading books. If I read one more PowerPoint, so I figured, if I do a documentary, that would be more interesting while you're also getting educated as well.
And it's interesting that you say that, because that was one of the things that stuck out to me the most about your documentary, in addition to you just having a really good scope of showing three women from three completely different backgrounds that all had this similarity in their experience. But the one thing that kept kind of like coming back to me was the threat of, oh, you're too young for breast cancer, or, even speaking to one of my cousins. I lost a cousin in 2015 to triple negative breast cancer, and she was 42 or 43 at the time, so still young. And one of the things that I've heard from a number of family members that have gone just to get mammograms, if they had a history of breast cancer, in their family, was that, oh, you're too young to get this, to get this mammogram if they're under 40. And it's like, why are we not doing more preventative care and taking more preventative measures, so we're not waiting until people are in crisis to actually see what's going on? So that was one of the things that I thought was really powerful about your documentary. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, you just spoke to everything. I hate when I'm not supposed to say hate, but I hate when providers say you're too young for cancer, because there's such a thing as pediatric cancer. So if a 10-year-old can get cancer, a 24-year-old is not too young to get cancer. So throw that out the window, just right there. And, just right there. Number one, it's also important to know your family cancer history. So if I know my mother had breast cancer at 40, the standard of care is for me to start getting screened at 30. But I also should do genetic testing to see if I have some mutations in my body. And there's more than, and I'm not knocking this, but there's more than BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. Because one of somebody who just turned to be my friend now, she has a gene that's much related to colon cancer, but also to breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And she just found out that she had that gene after she got diagnosed with colon cancer at the age of 39.
Wow.
So there's so many factors that need to be involved. And I think, unfortunately, our medical system or our health system is so busy, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of vacancies. So it's like, hi, bye, how you doing? But we really need to take the time as providers to say, who are you? You're Nia. Okay. Do you have a family cancer history? You do? Let me put this in a risk assessment, because I actually do. And my provider put it in a risk assessment. It turned out that I have a high risk of getting breast cancer. So now what I do now is, starting at the age of 29, I'll be 31, get screened 3D mammograms, and also breast MRIs to see what my breasts look like. If you do not know your family cancer history, or maybe you're adopted, maybe you have no clue, you need to say, hey, you need to say, hey, first of all, start with you, look at your breast, see what it looks like, see what it feels like, because the moment that it looks different or feels different, then you go to your doctor and say, hey, this is not what's going on. This is not my body. And then that also points to having a patient-provider relationship, because the doctor would say, if you have that relationship with your doctor, hey, you know what, that is different. I validate what you're saying. Let's do an ultrasound. Let's do a 3D mammogram. Let's do a breast MRI, to do all those things. And it's also important to our generation. We have a generation where, listen, I love a cocktail. but they're finding out binge drinking, that just means drinking in a short amount of time, increases your risk of breast cancer. Well, it's important. I'm gonna need for you to tell this to our community, because I feel like we all binge drink. I don't really drink Monday through Thursday, but Friday, Saturday, and I will drink my wine on Sunday. They don't tell us that, so like you said, preventative measures, things like that. It's I can speak to it all, not smoking, exercising as much as you can, that can prevent your incidence of getting breast cancer, breastfeeding, some women can't breastfeed or some women do not want to try to breastfeed, but if you can breastfeed, try to breastfeed because that also decreases your risk of getting breast cancer, eating healthy. I'm a Philly girl from West Philly. I love cheesesteaks,
Yeah,
but
but
you
you
know,
can't have cheesesteak every day. Come on now. Get your veggies in, drink your water, mind your business. All those things help keep you safe and healthy. Maybe I threw that last part in there just because, but I'm just saying.
and my mom's like, if you don't make your plate colorful, does that look colorful? And I'm like, mind you, she has a business more than kale, so I should be ashamed of myself. But to that point, not only does that decrease eating healthy decrease your risk of breast cancer, it helps so many other ways, diabetes, hypertension, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I can speak to the preventative measures. Not the too young, having that patient provider relationship is so important. Being an advocate, I've had people say, well, not people, but when I've gotten my ultrasound in my breast, you have dense breasts. Well, that means that you can't definitively tell me if I have something or not.
Just by June.
I'm gonna need for you to do something else. So I'm very vocal, as you can see. So then they did a 3D mammogram, and they still told me I had dense breasts. So I said, okay, I need a breast MRI, and they're like, don't do that. So they did that, and it determined, yes, I still have dense breasts, but it was it was a clearer image to see, excuse me. So then they were able to say, no, Nia, you do not have anything. So it's always important to advocate for yourself and maybe to have somebody with you because sometimes you don't know what to say or what to ask.
I was going to say some of what you're saying, even now, I feel like a lot of people just don't even have access to that information. So they might not even have the right questions to ask, to their healthcare provider to know, what the next steps are. If someone is told, okay, you have dense breasts, okay, it's like, all right, well, now that we know this bit of information, what can we do to try to get the clearest image of what's going on with my body so that I know what I'm dealing with?
Yes, it's so important. I think a lot of people forget this, and I say this very respectfully. The doctors work for us,
Yeah.
right? If there wasn't a patient, there wouldn't be a doctor. So it's okay to question and just say, I don't understand that. Or, you know what, hold on, my girlfriend works here, or my man works here, and they would better understand these, what you're saying to me. That's okay. We're all busy, yes, but the provider, that doctor's here for you. So you can ask those questions. I take that white coat syndrome off. Listen, we friends at this point.
And you just made me think of a part of your documentary with Janique where she was talking about how her treatment was making her body feel and the fact that it was not improving things and that her lump was getting bigger. And she had to be an advocate for herself to say, hey, listen, I'm not doing this anymore because this method of treatment is not working for my body. You cannot be afraid to speak up when it comes to your body. We only get one and we have to carry it through this whole life.
And to your point, and wasn't she right?
She was right. Who knows your body better than you? Hello.
And I know it's so frustrating to always push and advocate for yourself, but to your point, this is you. You have to. You love yourself, care for yourself more than anybody because you're with yourself. So keep pushing. And I always say, ask the doctor, are you treating me how you would treat your mother, your sister, your whatever, your spouse, whatever? I want that treatment. Don't get me, I want this treatment. That's what I want.
I love it so much.
Likewise.
One of the other things I was going to ask you was how you found the women that you decided to highlight their stories for the documentary. How did you go about that process?
They were actually my patients. They're in treatment for like 4 to 7 weeks. So either you have a strong bond with them or you don't, but typically we do. And we just became like, patient provider, and then it's like, oh, we're cool, oh, we're friends, oh, you're my homie, so that's how it turned out to be. And Janique, like you said, she had such a powerful story of just being diagnosed and having to push to be screened, and then it traveling to her lung and then her brain, and she's still here, and now she's married, and she's just living her life, she's thriving. But just a powerful story, and I thought it was very important for someone like us to see someone like us, and to get that story across. But then I talked to Brenda, and she was like, Nia, I'm a Mexican woman, I didn't think I was going to get breast cancer. So I thought that was so powerful for her community, in her language.
Yeah.
Yes. And sometimes, we take care of the house, we do all these other things, but if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't do anything else. So I think she finally understood that and got that. And then lastly, Lynn Mitchell, she said, I'm a single mom. I have to get through these treatments. I have to do what I have to do. So I really thought it was important to show these strong women who came from different backgrounds, languages, everything, and just to show all types of women. Hey, I see you. I want you to live a beautiful life. I want our children, next generation, to live a beautiful life. And these are sort of the tools and educational tools and things we need to know so that we can live a thriving life, a healthy life.
Yeah. So, what do you hope that people that see your documentary are going to gain from having a first-hand view of these women's stories and of their surviving and still being here to share those stories?
What I don't think I could have answered this before, but having a couple of screenings, it's maybe I should get a mammogram, or maybe I should talk to my family and sort of poke and prod if they can give me some information. Or maybe, I did get genetic testing, but we find different genetic markers pretty much every year. Maybe I should go back. Maybe I should enroll in clinical trials. I know Black people and brown people typically don't like clinical trials, but we take Tylenol on that one through a clinical trial process. So maybe if we do that, they can find specifically what's in our DNA and save us. So that those type of conversations is exactly what I want, because it pushes not only the providers, it pushes legislation, it pushes just so many other things. So that conversation is what I want.
Wow. Well, in addition to the amazing documentary that you made as a filmmaker, I'm still putting that out there for you because
Oh,
that's
Bob.
you're also an author, the author of Love Thy Neighbor, a powerful story following a young girl's mission to feed, clothe, and fellowship with the homeless. Can you talk about becoming an author and why you wanted to tell that particular story?
Yeah, so my grandmother passed away when I was a sophomore in high school. So I can't say I don't remember her, but I feel like now that I'm an adult, I feel more drawn to her, especially now that she's not here. It's kind of weird. So I really wanted to tell her story. So it's sort of her story as an 18-year-old coming from Inner South Carolina to Philadelphia during that great migration period, and just always being so kind. So she always taught my mother and myself and my brother, never look down on anyone unless you're extending a hand down to help them. So that sort of translated into the homeless population. So whenever we would pass anybody that needed help, she would offer them food, money, or just whatever. And she always made sure somebody felt seen, because they are often not seen, or they often don't even hear their voice or their name. So she made sure in the moments that she was around them that they really felt important, because they are. So that translated into this book. Smiley is what they called her, because she always smiled. Smiley is teaching me how to give to others. And once she transitioned, we continued Smiley's trajectory of helping other people. So I really wanted to teach younger children that it's important to see people, right? Because you want to be seen, and never judge anybody's situation, because we are all just a decision or a paycheck away from being in that position. And I would want help if I was in that position. So just sort of doing what Smiley would do.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's so funny that you say that. A friend of mine, she lived in California for years, and there was a program there called hashtag lunch bag that she brought back here to Philly for a while. It kind of had to like stop like pre-COVID, like a little bit before COVID, but we would go out once a month and like pack lunches and write, just little notes to say, like encouraging things, and then go and just, hand them out throughout the city and just have conversations. And one of the things that was like a very common thing that was said was, thank you for the food, but more importantly, thank you for just, having a conversation with me. So many people just walk past me like I don't exist. And so to hear you echo that same sentiment and know that, that was something passed down from your grandmom Smiley, and you have her smile. I haven't even seen her, but I feel like you have her smile. It's just amazing. It's amazing. Your light is very bright. Your light is
Thank you. Likewise. I think that's why we're here. We always have to find our purpose in life. And I think I found my purpose. I just want to help people, whether it's radiation, whether it's breast cancer, cancer, whether it's somebody just to be seen. I just want to help. And
no,
then in a spiritual way, I think that while I do that, I'm also glorifying God.
absolutely. So, speaking of help, where can we help support you in these amazing ventures that you're doing? Where can we purchase the book and where can we see the documentary?
I appreciate it. So you can go on Amazon, Love Thy Neighbor, for the book. But you know what? I just always direct people to my website. It's drniaimanibailey.com. And we're going to put out the flyer next Monday about the next screening, which is at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. So that's the next screening. You can get the book there. You can see what's going on. You request a screening. So it's just sort of, it shows a little idea of me and, what we're doing.
Awesome. And where can people follow you on social media to keep up with all of the wonderful things that you're up to?
Well, you might not see some things in my close friends now playing, but you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Ni Imani or a letter to my sisters 2022.
Awesome. Well, it was such a pleasure, Dr. Nia. I love talking to you. And
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping that I'll be able to make it because I missed the last screening. So I'm like, I hope that I don't have to work so I can come to this.
I know you're such a busy bee. You're doing it. But listen. I'll get you the newer copy because we're also trying to go through post production and things like that to make it much better. So
Well,
you'll be.
I can't imagine it being better than it already is, but I await seeing the finished product. So I'll just say that.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Sun Spotlight. To support Dr. Nia Bailey and the wonderful work that she's doing, including where you can purchase her book, Love Thy Neighbor, and where you can find out more information about her documentary, including where the next screening is going to be sure to visit her website, drniaimanibailey.com. Follow her on Instagram at Dr. Ni Imani, and follow the documentary's page on Instagram, which is A Letter to My Sisters 2022. To keep up with me and all that I'm up to, you can follow me on Instagram at The Real Charisma, on Twitter and TikTok at Real Charisma, and then head on over to my YouTube channel, Charisma Music, where you can check out some of my latest performances. And while you're online, be sure to like and follow the Philadelphia Sunday Sun on all social media platforms. I'll be back next Thursday at noon with a brand new episode, and I hope to see you there. Until then, love and light.